So I'm sad to deliver the news to some that Louis Gossett Jr. passed away. Today, we're just going to give you some highlights on his career. Let's talk about it.
Oh, it's good. Good and terrible.
I love Brotha T.
How you doing? This is Terrion Wilson, aka yo boy Brotha T, here with another one. So I'd like to thank you and welcome to the new life tree, where we like to give you little pine cones of wisdom for your motivation and mental health. If you don't know what that is, stick around, stay on the channel, you'll get it. Now remember, I don't know everything, but I might know a lot of things. So today we're going to talk about Louis Gossett Jr. We're just going to give you a few highlights in his career, because I'm going to tell you right before I get into some of the highlights that I'm 45 years old, so I'm in my mid 40s, and I could tell you growing up in the 80s, I was an 80s child. And I remember a lot of times when you looked at movies and even TV shows, when you see especially black men cast, a lot of times they were cast as the criminal or the insignificant character in a movie. Louis Gossett Jr. was one of the bigger actors during that time. Of course, you had Denzel was coming up. He wasn't quite Denzel yet. And then you had Morgan Freeman, who was coming up at the same time. He was kind of getting ahead of steam on him. And then you had a few others, but you didn't have many that were mainstream actors. But Louis Gossett, for a time in the 80s, probably into the early 90s, he fit the bill. He was one of the big actors, and as far as African-American actors are concerned. So let's go right into some of the highlights of his career. We're going to start with his casting in A Raisin in the Sun, where we start alongside Ruby Dee and Sidney Poitier. This is a classic. And of course, I did see this movie. I seen it a long time ago, and it had a great impact on my childhood. Sometimes when you go back to these older productions and these older movies, they still have some of the same messages that are still relevant today even. So just a great movie to go see. Let's go ahead to 1976, where he starred in JD's Revenge. I did see this one as well, and I remember that it was about some old killer, or I forget if he was a killer or a pimp. I think maybe he was both, and he possessed the body of a guy, and it was a silly movie. It was blaxploitation basically. But I remember Louis Gossett actually being in this movie as like the detective type. And it was an interesting movie, to say the least. Let's move on to 1977. And this is where he made a big splash in the miniseries Roots, where he played Fiddler. Now, I'm not going to go deep into what Roots was for those that didn't know. And if you don't know, do your research and find out what Roots really was. It was a miniseries about the slavery times, basically. We're just going to leave it there. And he did play a pivotal character in that movie. It was star-studded, of course. And it was a miniseries that ran for, I forget how many weeks, because I really don't remember when it ran originally, because I wasn't born yet. But I certainly remember watching it after the fact on, video tapes and stuff like that. So let's go to the next thing. He, in 1982, starred in An Officer and a Gentleman, which is one of those movies that, most actors, especially big actors, when they become big named actors, they have that one movie that just propels them to the stratosphere. That was this movie for Louis Gossett Jr., because he played the drill sergeant in The Officer and the Gentleman, and he played alongside Deborah Winger and Richard Gere. A great performance in the movie by everybody. However, Louis Gossett's performance was so great that it earned him the first supporting actor nomination. Oh, I'm sorry, not nomination. First supporting actor win for African American in a movie. And it's a great movie. If you haven't seen that movie, I suggest you watch it. For those that are younger, you'll probably look at it and be like, oh, these old movies. But these old movies can really still be good. And if you look at that performance by Louis Gossett and Richard Gere, even great performances in that movie. And there was one scene where Richard Gere is on the ground and he says, "But I have nowhere to go." Just watch the movie, you'll get it. Let's go ahead to 1983, where he starred in Jaws 3D. We're just going to skip that one. Let's go to the next one. In 1985, he starred in a movie named Enemy Mine, where he starred alongside Dennis Quaid. This movie is a satire on race relations and being tolerant and learning to bond with individuals. So Randy Quaid plays, he pretty much plays the racist, but you know, he's an astronaut. And then Louis Gossett Jr. plays the alien. And I guess that's a symbol for, you know, somebody that's unlike the other person. And they both don't like each other, but they learn how to depend on each other on a planet where a lot of dangers are happening around them. It's an interesting movie. So it gets a little weird in some places, but I suggest everybody at least look at that movie, and maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll be a little weirded out at times, but all in all, it has a good message underneath if you really can read it in between the lines, of course. So let's go ahead to the next highlight, and that would be in 1986 when he starred in Iron Eagle. Now, this will be the first one I named so far that I really didn't see, but I remember it came around the time, I don't know if it came before or after, but it was around the time of the Top Gun and some, you know, it had those flight movies going on, and it was kind of in the same vein. So a lot of, you know, fighter pilot type stuff, and it always looked good. And it used to come on in reruns later on, and I remember seeing clips of it, and it seemed like it was pretty good. I just never sat down to watch it, and I think they made 1, 2, 3, 4. I think they kept making them, and I guess that was good for Louis because he got that money. You get what I'm saying? Let's go to the next one. That will be 1986 as well, and that movie is called Firewalker with Chuck Norris. I remember seeing this one, and I remember it was chock full of action. Well, I mean, anything with Chuck Norris in it, show him to me. That's right. If it has Chuck Norris in it, then you know some action was had in the movie. And I do remember liking this movie. But back then, of course, I liked those cheesy movies. A lot of those canon movies that were chock full of useless violence and gratuitous nudity. Okay, we'll just go to the next one, right? All right, and we're going to talk about 1987, where he starred in The Principal alongside Jim Belushi. I remember seeing this movie as well, and I remember once again, I don't know if it was if they were copying, but it came around the time you had like Lean on Me and some of those movies where you had the kids and they were in the school and they were being bad and the gangs, and then you got this one savior that comes through and you know, and he lays the law down for everybody. It was in that vein, and I remember the movie being very, very good as well. A little more action packed than Lean on Me, but I think you get the point. In 1991, he starred alongside Lynn Whitfield in the Josephine Baker Story. If you have not seen this movie, I need you to stop today. Take a look at this movie. This movie is phenomenal. And not just because of the movie and the actors in it, but also Josephine Baker has a very powerful story. Man, it's some stuff with Josephine Baker that you will be very shocked and amazed by, especially when she, you know, got over to France. And find out for yourself. I'm not even going to get into it, but a great movie. Check it out. Also in 1991, he starred in a movie called Toy Soldiers. I seen this one as well. Man, I've seen a lot of Louis Gossett Jr. movies now that I think about it. But this movie was great. Also in the 90s, I forget the actual year because I didn't put it in my notes, but he starred in a movie called Diggstown, and he was like a traveling boxer, and those unofficial boxing matches that they used to have, and when you beat the other person, you win the purse and stuff like that, and you would travel around from place to place. Great movie and great acting in the movie, and he was like an aging, prize fighter. It's a very good movie. Didn't put it in my notes, but I remember that specifically, that I really liked that movie, and it was in the 90s. Do your own research. You'll find out exactly when they made it. So 2007, he starred in Daddy's Little Girls alongside Idris Elba, among others. Great movie. Actually, it's one of my favorite Tyler Perry movies. I pick and choose my Tyler Perry movies very carefully because some I don't really care for. Then some, they're okay. And then some I love. Like, I'll give you an example. I like Acrimony. I think Acrimony is probably my favorite out of them. I like Temptation. I like Daddy's Little Girl. I like How Did I Get Married? Why Did I Get Married Too? We're going to talk about that shortly. And I think you get the idea. I pretty much like every Tyler Perry movie where he doesn't dress up as Medea. Not to say that those movies aren't enjoyable at times. It's just that, it weirds me out a little bit. So I like the movies where he really doesn't have to do that. I like Good Deeds as well. Those are great movies. So Daddy's Little Girls, one of my favorite Tyler Perry movies. I like Idris Elba's performance. Gabrielle Union was in it. I like her performance. Tasha Smith was, that's the sister's name. She was phenomenal in it. Great movie all the way around. Let's go ahead. Fast forward to 2010. Why Did I Get Married Too? Just mentioned that a little while ago. So in Why Did I Get Married Too, he played, a man and an elderly couple giving great advice on how they stayed together so long. It was a very small role, but it was a very powerful role and very intricate to the plot of that movie at the time that they were in the movie. Now, some weird stuff happened after that in the movie, and I'll let you find out for yourself. But I did love the movie, and his performance was powerful, although it was brief. And we're going to head it up with 2023, where he starred in The Color Purple, which is probably his, last released movie. Now, I did skip some movies because he was a working actor for years, 40 years it looks like, and 50 probably close to. And, there were movies that I didn't touch on. I try to touch on the highlights, some of the big movies that he did, some of the movies that did well at the box office as well. So if I skipped one or two and you're like, no, he was in such and such and it was a good movie, I apologize, but I can't make the video, 2 hours long. So my condolences to the family of Louis Gossett Jr. I just wanted to make this show just to highlight some of the great performances that he was a part of, and he was one of our greatest living actors, not just black, but actors period, and especially in the 80s. He was one of the best. He was one of the, I forgot Glover when I was naming a lot of those black actors that was coming up in the 80s, but he was one of the ones, man. And we really were giving our brother so many props. It's too late to give him flowers while he's here. So I'm definitely going to hand out his flowers in the wake of his, transition. So peace out to my family, to his family, and peace out to my family watching this. And I hope you enjoy this retrospective and highlight reel of our man, Louis Gossett Jr. Rest in peace.